He danced while they watched. A planned humiliation, carefully executed.
I never liked nightclubs, but that night I went anyway. My wife said she was going out with her coworkers to celebrate a promotion, but the smile she gave me when she left felt rehearsed. Off, something in my gut, a tight knot in my chest, told me not to ignore it. Not this time, so I drove. I parked a block away from the club she mentioned, feeling sick to my stomach, hating every second I sat there in the dark. The bass from the building was so loud I could feel it vibrating through my car seat. After a while I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I got out and walked towards the entrance. The thumping got louder, a rhythmic punch to the gut. Inside it was chaos. Flashing lights, a sea of sweaty bodies, faces blurring together. I felt completely out of place, an alien in this world of loud music and cheap perfume. I pushed through the crowd, scanning every corner, every table, every group of people, and then I saw her. She was near the bar, bathed in the neon glow. And she wasn't alone. Her hand was resting on a man's chest. Not casually, but like it belonged there, like it had found its home. They were laughing, their heads leaned in so close their words were just for each other. The world went silent. The music, the chatter, it all just faded away. All I could see was that hand on his chest. My heart didn't just break. It felt like it dropped right through the floor of the club and into some dark, cold abyss. My first instinct was to leave. Just turn around and walk out before I did something I'd regret, before the rage and hurt completely took over. But as I turned, a hand grabbed my arm, hard. Before I could react, another man grabbed my other arm. I didn't recognize either of them. They were big, expressionless. They started pulling me towards a back room, away from the dance floor. I tried to protest, to shout, but my voice was swallowed by the relentless beat of the music. No one even noticed. They pushed me through a door and into a dimly lit room. The music was muffled now, a distant thud. They forced me into a chair and started restraining me with rough, practiced movements. Pure, ice-cold panic flooded my body. It was all happening so fast. And in that terrifying moment, I realized the horrifying truth. This wasn't random. They knew exactly who I was. Then, from the shadows at the other end of the room, a figure emerged. It was my wife. She didn't look surprised to see me tied to a chair. She didn't look scared or guilty. She looked annoyed, irritated, like I was an inconvenience she had to deal with. The man from the bar was right beside her, a smug, satisfied smile on his face. "This was necessary," she said, her voice dripping with a coldness I'd never heard before. "So you would finally understand." Understand what? That she was cheating? I already understood that. No, this was something else. This was about power, about humiliation. The shame burned hotter than the fear. I felt small, pathetic, but I refused to give them what they wanted. I didn't beg. I didn't shout. I didn't plead. I just stared at her. I held her gaze, my silence a wall she couldn't break through, and I saw it then. My silence made her uncomfortable. It wasn't the reaction she had planned for. After what felt like an eternity of her trying to justify her actions, they left. They locked the door, leaving me alone in the dark, tied to a chair. They assumed I was broken, powerless, but they underestimated me. They underestimated my patience. Once the sound of their footsteps faded, I took a deep breath and focused. I pushed the panic and the pain down. One had to get out of there. I tested the restraints. They were strong but sloppy, put on in a hurry. It took time. My wrists were raw by the end, but I worked at the knots, slowly, methodically, and eventually I was free. I didn't go after them. I didn't kick down the door and cause a scene. That's what they would have expected. Instead, I quietly found another way out, a service exit that led to a back alley. I slipped out into the night, unnoticed, and walked back to my car, the cool air a relief on my burning skin. That night, something inside me changed. It hardened. The part of me that had been soft, that had been willing to forgive anything, died in that back room. When she came home hours later, acting smug and confident, I didn't confront her. She thought she had won. She thought I was a broken man who would accept whatever scraps she threw my way. She was wrong. Instead of yelling, I started planning, quietly, Carefully, I became a detective in my own life. I started gathering evidence not with emotion, but with cold, calculated precision. It was disturbingly easy. Deleted messages I recovered from the cloud, suspicious bank transfers. I even set up a voice-activated recorder in her car. And I learned something that chilled me to the bone. The man from the club wasn't just a fling. He was involved in some seriously illegal operations running through that nightclub, and my wife. My wife knew far more than she ever let on. She wasn't just an accomplice to an affair. She was an accomplice to crime. My first call wasn't to her or to her family. It was to Lousy, the best one I could find. My second call was an anonymous tip to the authorities. I documented everything. Every message, every recording, every financial discrepancy. I built a case, not just for a divorce, but for justice. Weeks passed. She grew careless, flaunting her new freedom, completely oblivious to the storm that was gathering. She thought I was wallowing in my misery. She had no idea I was building a cage for her. Then one night it happened. The police raided the club. It was all over the news the next morning. Arrests were made, including her partner. My wife's name was connected to the whole scandal. The authorities brought her in for extensive questioning. She came home that night a completely different person. The smug confidence was gone, replaced by tears and frantic panic. She demanded my support. She actually expected me to stand by her. I looked at her, and for the first time I told her what I thought. "I already gave you all my support," I said calmly, "and you threw it away in the back room of a nightclub." She tried threatening me, then she tried begging. Neither worked. The man I was before might have fallen for it, but he was gone. The divorce papers arrived the next morning. Her shock was real this time. She couldn't believe it. She tried to fight it, to flip the story and paint me as the villain. But the evidence I had collected spoke much louder than her lies. It was undeniable.